breakout sessions too. We're going to be talking about what's coming up this year. So we'll do introductions. We're going to talk about collective impact a little bit as a reminder of what it is that collective impact, how that works, what it means. Aligning initiatives. There are many initiatives in our community right now, and we want to make sure that they are all aligned. All of us are saying we're doing collective impact, so let's see how that goes. Bridges. We're going to talk about bridges out of poverty and the implementation plan for this year. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll do updates and announcements from each of you and your organizations, anything that you have that's coming up within 30 days or so. And then we will close at 3 o'clock. So let us start with introductions. So we'll start at this table and make our way around the room. Hi.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Barnes with the Salvation Army, Volunteer and Special Events Coordinator. I'm Andrea Wilson, I work at TAT.
My name is Candace Porter Cummings, and I'm with the City of Tyler Neighborhood Services Department. And I am Chase Ragland. I am the Coordinator of Leadership and Service at UT Tyler.
Oh, I'm Dr. Melody Alexander, I'm a research scientist.
Judith Guthrie, kind of a community volunteer and connected with Gateway to Hope, Day Homeless Center.
I'm Don Warren. I'm on the Tyler City Council, but I'm also on the Housing and Homelessness Roundtable.
Gary Cramphighway, U.S. Commission Coordinator.
Sandy Brazil Hamilton, I'm with East Texas Medical Center Behavioral Health.
Robin Allen, with UT Health Northeast.
Rowena Searles, UT Health Northeast.
Andrea Corcoran, Community Church.
Charles Smith, East Texas Council on Alcoholism and Drug Use.
Skip Palmer with the Andrew Center.
Over Larkin, Texas A&M East Northeast Region. Lisa Lupine, Community Volunteer. Suzanne Lyle, St. Vincent de Paul.
John Smith with Emergency Housing and Veterans Administration.
Charlotte Garland, Tyler Independent School District.
Ricardo Phipps, UT Tyler, Department of Psychology and Counseling.
Tasha Brennan, the Housing Case Manager at East Texas Crisis Center.
Community volunteer.
Stacey Calderon, UT Tyler Community Centers, Community Liaison.
Mike Colliver, community volunteer.
Brandon Wesley of We Believe Incorporated.
David Stout, We Believe Incorporated.
Very good, welcome.
I'm Susan Lennard. I'm with Texas Department of Transportation.
John Myers, East Texas Council of Governments.
Gloria Bell, Community.
Shervin Mitchell, ETHNA. Scott Fair, Tyler ISD, Special Education.
Bob Brewer, Transportation Advocate.
J.D. Meyer, Community Volunteer and ETCIL Client.
Jeannie Anderson at the East Texas Crisis Center. Very good. It's great to see you all. Who has come in the last few minutes that needs to be introduced? Christy?
I'm Christy Raines. I'm the Area Mobility Manager for Public Transportation in Tyler and Smith County.
Good. Carmen Sosa, East Texas Community Food Coalition, and Director of Rose City Farmers Market.
Greg Peters, Tyler Junior College.
Very good. Welcome, everyone. We have a great mix of organizations from all sectors. We start every meeting as a reminder of what collaboration means. Having this many organizations from across sectors in so many fields and so many levels means that we have to be very purposeful and very strategic about the work that we do. That we're leveraging the resources that each of us brings to the table. We each have different levels of expertise in the fields in which we work and resources that we can bring to the table. But that we're doing all of this in order to benefit the community, benefit all of those in our community. We are working to coordinate our activities and to communicate information. We communicate information in this environment with open trust and transparency, and that's difficult to attain. It's difficult to attain because we often don't know each other very well. But as the last couple of years have proven to us, we are in fact feeling quite comfortable with each other and sharing information, especially in committee work. And if we hear about it, we can address it. If we don't know about it, we can't. That's really what it comes down to. I think we have Dr. McGahey just came in. Hi, we just did introductions. Will you let everyone know who you are?
I'm Paul McGahey. I work for the State Health Department to show us. Thank you.
Welcome. Our vision, the vision that we all agreed to last year, which is to have a community with equitable access for all. And whatever that means to you, that's right. And it means something different to each of us because of the work that we do. So equitable access in whatever field that you happen to be in. Our mission is that of very diverse organizations and individuals who may not be affiliated with any organization. We're working together in order to strengthen the existing programs that we have in our community, form connections among each of us, each of our organizations and individuals, and improve awareness of the services that we have in this community that help address very essential human needs. This is not unlike the definition of collective impact, which is diverse organizations working together to solve complex problems. So it's pretty much the same. Ours has more details. So how is it that we do our work? How is it that the Human Needs Network works? Well, we put together a pretty strategic plan that we've been following for the last 2 years. And number one is to engage the community. And as you can see here today, we've engaged the community at many, many levels. So we're engaging the community, we're sharing information, and I'll give you more detail on that in just a few minutes. We've done research to determine what the needs are in our community. We're coordinating the plan to address those, and we have multiple plans, that's just one. And then we will be measuring impact as time passes, probably in 2016, once we've been able to really implement all of these action plans that we're developing, we'll be able to do that research again and see what impact our work has had. So this is how we do our work. So community engagement, all of us here, lots of people, but it is multi-sector. It's important that it is multi-sector. Multi-sector means that we have representatives from government agencies, local government, state and federal government at different levels, that we have businesses represented. Businesses is the sector that is least represented in this organization, in the Human Needs Network. So it's one that we need to strive to address more, and I think this year, with this year's strategic plan, we'll be able to do that. And then that little heart means social services, those of us that are doing social services. And what we all have in common is that we're all addressing the needs of an individual in many different ways. You know, government is tasked with and they're responsible for ensuring that its citizens are safe and taken care of. Businesses are working perhaps with owners or those who own some stock of the company, but ultimately what they're doing is they're selling a service, and it's a service that ultimately meets the needs of individuals. And then the social services sector, the nonprofit, is picking up the pieces that the government and the businesses are leaving behind. We really are a catch-all. We do pretty much anything you can think of that exists out there in services. We, in social services, do a piece of that as well. Please, if you have any questions, stop me along the way. I'm happy to stop and answer questions. So information sharing is a really important piece of what we do, and we're doing it in many different ways. We're doing it through our website. We're doing it thanks to Trevins Mitchell, raise your hand so everybody knows. Trevins, thanks to Trevins, we're also doing social media. And our Facebook page has been active now for 2 years, but I think you'll find it to be more strategic in the type of information that we share. And it will be in line with what we have on LinkedIn. We will have a blog on LinkedIn, so we will be sending out information to help us as we follow our strategic plan, to guide us and to give us information on what's taking place. We'll also be doing Twitter. That's the one that I'm least familiar with, but thanks to Trevins and those of you who tweet, we're pretty good. We have that little group of people up there at the top. We host meetings and trainings and workshops and conferences in addition to these. We also post on our website and through the social media any recent research on any one of those fields: education, employment, healthcare, housing, or transportation. So the latest data that's out there, if we're made aware of it, if I haven't already found it in my reading each each day, then let me know about it. Any new research, any reports in any of these fields are things that we like to share on our website and through social media. Our meetings have changed. They've always been on the second Monday of the month, and the only thing different starting today is that they're going to be from 1 to 3. This is in order to give us more time, especially on the meetings in which we have breakout sessions in which the committees are actually breaking out to do some work. But also because children who are experiencing homelessness and who are living at the Salvation Army shelter usually get here around 3:15 from school, and all of their classrooms are down in this hall. They have tutors that are coming in and waiting for them. They have music. They have lots of fun activities, and so we don't want to be in the way, so that's why we decided that we will end our meetings at 3 o'clock. So what we're doing is we're bringing organizations together around a common objective. That's what these meetings are about. We offered training. We've offered training in the last year on diversion. Diversion means that when this is in particular to housing, when you encounter a person that's experiencing homelessness, most of us would assume that the first thing you want to do is put them in a shelter. Put them in a shelter. Diversion training, which is case management training, actually teaches you how to do something different. The shelter is not always the best answer or the number one answer. SOAR is training that helps individuals help their clients access any of the federal, state, or local benefits that are available to them. Working with Bridges Out of Poverty, we'll be doing extensive training this year on Bridges Out of Poverty concepts. And working with 211. 211 East Texas is revamping, as you all know, its database, its information system, the way in which we do research on that database to access services, to learn about what's available. And we're a part of that. We're a big part of that. They're implementing something new this year. It's a sort of a portal in which anyone from Human Needs Network can access the 211 database and be behind the scenes, be able to have access to all of the data that those caseworkers that work at 211 have at their fingertips. So all of us will have that as well through a portal on 211. And then the events that we've had in the past, the One Night Without a Home event, in which we experience homelessness, the Point in Time Homeless Survey, which is taking place pretty soon, and then our annual conference. So we agreed at the first meeting, the very first meeting we had, which was, I think, August or September of 2012. We had people just like you from many different organizations, many different fields, and we all thought we knew what the needs were within our field, but what we didn't all know is for any single individual in our community, what are his or her needs in regards to education, employment, healthcare, housing, and transportation. So we had research from the Literacy Council. We had research that had to do with issues of housing and education, but all of those were very different pieces of data, and none of them had combined what was the need of a single individual. So that was a big piece of what we've done, and it's what's guiding almost all of our actions since we started, is gathering this research and determining, based on the information that we gathered from the families that we interviewed, those heads of household, the families that we interviewed, families that are experiencing poverty, who are just not able to make ends meet, asking them what their needs were. It was an extensive research project. And what we learned was, under education, a third of the people we interviewed didn't have a high school degree. 42 were unemployed. None of them were receiving benefits, which means they were unemployed much longer than what the benefits allow. They're not being counted anymore. Healthcare, 44% without health insurance. 12% of those we interviewed were homeless. 34% did not have reliable transportation. There were lots and lots of questions that led to these responses. But then, often in social services, or I guess it's just human nature, when someone tells us that they have a problem, we want to fix it, right? And we think we know what the answer is. And we think we know what they need, and we want to help them prioritize what action they must take or should take. And we asked them what they thought their needs were. So we know what their status is. This is their circumstances, right? Those are the circumstances. But what is it that they want most? What is it that they want most? So in the field of education, they wanted assistance with school tuition. In employment, career and job training, health insurance and dental care under the health care questions. For housing, it was utility assistance. Utility assistance is often much, much more expensive for families of low income than their rent payment or their mortgage payment. And there are a lot of questions for that.
But it was a little more specific because it was when they have their utilities disconnected, there's nobody out there that helps with reconnect.
Right. That was part of it as well. That's right. But it was housing assistance. I mean, utility assistance was the number one need overall under all of those housing questions.
We've been looking at reconnect.
Yes. Well, and that's a good place to start.
Because Kath and lots of other people help with utility assistance. Nobody else with the reconnect.
Right. I know.
So we're going to change the law.
advocacy.
We are going to change.
That's right. It's going to take policy changes. Yeah.
Everything.
It's a good point.
Not a policy change, but a change from the law.
Good. Well, if anyone can do it, you can. That's
That's
why we have your federal judge hat on, and then you get to help us do that. Okay, and then for transportation, the number one need was gasoline. Now, the goals, the action items that each of the committees set in place were to address each of these things. And some of them, based on all of the data that they collected, established their number one goal, not as gasoline, for example. That was not the number one goal of the Transportation Committee. It was, in fact, to increase ridership in public transportation, change the culture of the community, understand what the needs are in regards to transportation. So that's actually what they established as the goal. But these were the results of the community assessment. And then coordinating a plan. How do we do that? Each of the committees put together their own goals and objectives. We have a few more chairs, guys, if you want to come up here. When you get here later, you can sit in front.
There's someone there.
There's another one there. There are a few more. There's one back here in the corner. Sure, I'll knock down your camera. Hey. Hi. So each of our committees has a vision for education. All children and adults have access to quality educational opportunities. All of you will have a copy of this presentation, access to a copy of this presentation. Under employment, that everyone has access to employment, not just employment, but employment that pays a living wage. Healthcare, access to quality, affordable health care. Housing, a place that they can call home, safe and affordable. And transportation, having access to reliable, accessible, and affordable transportation. This is a video on collective impact. It's only a couple of minutes long. Hopefully that's not too loud or loud. We were testing it a minute ago. Christina, can I ask a quick question before you start? Yep.
Is there an update on the coordinated access?
Oh, coordinated access. We're waiting for HMIS to adopt the VSAC.
If you explain all those things. Could you speak English?
Yeah, I'll explain what that means.
Sorry.
Yeah. HUD has been probably at the forefront of establishing, for those who are seeking HUD funding, requirements for collaboration. And it's happening little by little in all federal departments. But HUD, the Housing and Urban Development Department, has probably been the first one that says unless you are collaborating, you will not receive funding. So it has forced us to play nice, to play with each other, and to actually coordinate our programs. They're putting some things in place that are in fact going to be benefiting all of us, whether we're in the field of housing or not, whether it's transportation or healthcare or education. It doesn't matter. The systems that they're putting in place will benefit all of us. And coordinated access is a way of ensuring, in this case, people that may be experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. So that's really why this was established. is that it doesn't matter what facility they walk into that provides those types of services or similar services. It really doesn't matter which one they walk into, because all of them are using the same universal intake form. They are going to be doing the same interview, no matter which agency they walk into. And once they're in the system, and they will be part of a homelessness management information system, once they're in that system, all of those same agencies have access to that data as well. Once they're in HMIS, then that individual can go to any one of those agencies to receive services, and they don't have to fill out an intake form and go through this tremendous interview and prove who they are and what their circumstances are. So one of the great benefits of that is helping treat people with respect, give them back their dignity, not have them prove time and time again that they need help. So that's one of the things, doing this coordinated access, coordinated assessment, is doing just that, is making sure that it doesn't matter what door you walk into, you're going to have the same assessment. And then the partnership, all of those agencies, institutions that then are making up that partnership, that continuum of care, it's what it's called, and more terminology in this case for HUD, the continuum of care, all of those agencies are then aligning all of their services in the process. They must, all of those services must be aligned. So we're doing street outreach, we're doing day services, we're doing prevention, rapid rehousing, transitional housing, permanent housing for those who need permanent supportive housing, and ultimately moving on to independence and paying their own rent somewhere, or getting a housing voucher if they qualify for one. So that continuum of care is a coordination of services, multiple agencies providing different services, but all of those services supporting each other as part of a continuum. So that's what coordinated access and assessment is, and HUD started it, but we're all going to be playing that game pretty soon, I think. Yeah.
If you don't want to get in on like allow people to live in the HUD house, but if you want to work on the HUD house, do they have opportunities for you to like your nonprofit to create jobs through working?
To go provide services to help people find jobs, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying to work on the HUD houses, we create jobs for them.
Yeah, Habitat for Humanity. There's HUD homes. A lot of people think of HUD homes as the places where those who have a housing voucher, right? They qualify based on their income. They have a housing voucher, and that means that they can go into this home. We call it a HUD home. It's really a home that can be owned by any private owner in this community, but it must meet housing quality standards. And once it meets those housing quality standards, then through a voucher process, the government who has issued that voucher actually pays the rent for that individual, or a portion of the rent for that individual. So it's really working with any organization, working through the city perhaps to give you connections of who might be some of those homeowners, property owners. But anyone who's providing subsidized housing, there's also apartment complexes, would be the ones to reach out to. Yeah.
But there's no like job training to work on housing that's eventually going to go to a HUD family.
No, there is.
I mean, why not?
Unless we invent it. Yeah. Anything is possible. Yeah.
So, Christina, you didn't say for sure what the HMIS form is in the process of.
About when will it be available? What will we have to submit to it?
It's probably going to be, by the time it's full implementation, another 6 months. Another 6 months.
Have you seen a copy of a draft?
Yes, I have. It's called the VI SPDAT. More names, more letters. It's really a vulnerability index. It's actually what it is. The vulnerability index means that in the process of doing that intake and assessment, you're asking about major components of someone's life. And then you're scoring them from 1 to 5, perhaps. And the higher the number, the more crisis that person finds himself in, the more trauma, perhaps. And then based on those scores, you provide different levels of service. So it's a form of triage. It's finding out who's out there and who's most vulnerable, and then making sure that we're reaching out to those that need us the most right now.
And once one of those forms is filled out, the data is going to be inputted, and this person seeking services gonna have like a little, their own little website of, you know, who they are, and other people can access that, or?
It's part of a big database, it's part of a big repository. And so only those agencies that are partnering have access to the data for that one individual. And of course, that one individual has to sign a release of information. Otherwise, the other agencies cannot see it. And then those that are addressing domestic violence, their data will not be included in the housing management information system.
And the youth?
And youth actually are youth. There's very little youth sheltering in our state, but youth are included in HMIS. Yeah. Okay, I clicked on this a minute ago and it didn't work, so I'm glad we had all these questions. So, because we're going to go on to the next one, and hopefully I can show you that before we finish today, though. And then measuring impact. This is the tough one. Measuring impact and all of us agreeing on what we want to measure. What is it that we all want to measure in the field of education? Is it third grade reading? Is it graduation? What is it that we want to measure in healthcare or in transportation? So we all have to agree to certain things to be measured, and then we have to ensure that we're measuring it the same way, that we have the same systems in place. And again, for housing, it's much easier because the government's already telling us how we need to do it. For the rest of us, we can make it up as we go, but we all have to be in agreement as to what it is that we're measuring. In our case, we established some indicators, some very critical indicators in each of those fields that we used when we did our research in 2013. And we will use the same indicators in 2016. Hi, so Mom, you want to come sit up first? You can sit over there. Okay, so our 2015 initiatives. There's lots of stuff going on in this community. We have the Partnership for Education. We have actually the executive director that is leading the Partnership for Education here, Christy, who came in a little bit late, so she didn't get to introduce herself either. Christy Califf, the Business Education Council, is here for the Partnership for Education. A regional transportation initiative. This is something that's just now getting started. Many of you probably know that the East Texas Center for Independent Living had two big town hall sessions. I'm not sure exactly what they were called, but people from all over in all different fields in need of transportation were a part of that. There was a lot of great information gathered. And so we're actually just now getting started on this regional transportation initiative. And just as HUD has forced us to play with each other, I think that the same is taking place with the Department of Transportation, because the big funding that most entities who provide transportation apply for each and every year is very competitive, but it doesn't meet a continuum of care like I described in housing, for example. So I think it's called 5310, is that right? That's right. 5310 is the grant. And so all of those entities in our community who may have been competitors in the past are going to be providing services that support each other. Where one drops off, the other one picks up. In this case, maybe literally, not just figuratively. And so we will have all of those agencies come together. TxDAT, I think, has been tasked with a lot of responsibility when it comes to that. But we are going to be hosting a meeting. Human Needs Network will host a meeting. And we will invite all of those in the field of transportation to come and meet and work collaboratively on that grant application. I know that there are already letters of support going out to many entities in our community. So the East Texas Council of Governments that has Go Bus, the City of Tyler Transit Department has Paratransit, TxDOT has services as well, and our local taxi company has services. All of those companies are really supporting each other because most individuals will need assistance from at least 2 or 3 out of all of them if they're really transportation dependent. And so if all of them are aligned, it's going to be much easier for that individual. So ultimately, our focus is the person who needs help. And if we can focus on the person who needs help, then the rest of it all falls into place. So that one is just now getting started. Homelessness Roundtable. We have several representatives here, including the chair of our Housing and Homelessness Roundtable. This is something that has been in place for a couple of years. As a result, we have now started a street outreach program that is actually starting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. A street outreach team that is multidisciplinary. Unlike any street outreach team that I know of in the state of Texas, we have Andrews Center, we have UT Health Northeast, and we have the Salvation Army making up a single team that does outreach. So they're actually working as a team, going out and interacting with people experiencing homelessness. And then each of them providing whatever their expertise is. So a multidisciplinary team. We also have in our community homelessness prevention funds, rapid rehousing funds, and all of those things have happened as a result of the work done by the Housing and Homelessness Roundtable. The work that we've done as the Human Needs Network on the research and the advocacy. And all of those things combined to, we now have almost a continuum of care, the one that I described a minute ago. The one piece that is still missing in our community is permanent supportive housing. And permanent supportive housing is designed to help those that are chronically homeless and who have a disability, physical disability or mental disability. And that's one piece that we don't have, with very few exceptions. We have a HUD VASH, which also came as a result of the work that we've done at the Human Needs Network. The research that we do when we do the point-in-time homeless survey, which we're doing on the 22nd, all of that data is combined then with state data, and then it goes to the federal government. And then the federal government looks at the data that we captured right here in Smith County and in Tyler, and based on formulas, they say, okay, we have an allocation that we're going to give you. What you're going to get locally, but we were able to receive, were 25 vouchers for veterans to provide permanent supportive housing for them. Permanent supportive housing. So that would not have happened had it not been for the work that we've been doing. So I'm very proud of that. And then the other really big task that we have to do at the Housing and Homelessness Roundtable is to try to develop more affordable housing in our community. That is the number one reason for homelessness, is the lack of affordability. Fair market rent is not fair market rent for most people. It's not fair at all. It's way too much. And so what they can afford is usually not very good conditions, not safe environments. The Meadows Foundation, how many of you are familiar with the Meadows Foundation from Dallas? The Meadows Foundation has recently, in the last year, put together an institute on mental health. They have an institute on mental health. And so they are working on regional initiatives that are collective impact initiatives to address the needs of those who have mental health or cognitive disabilities. And that is an amazing endeavor to tackle. They have great experience. They have had good success. We're just now getting started. Our second meeting is taking place later this week. The first one took place about 3 months ago. So in the realm of mental health, we have another collective impact campaign. And then our collective impact campaign that we're starting on this year, which is in addition to everything else that we do, is the Bridges Out of Poverty. So we're implementing all of the framework of Bridges Out of Poverty. And this is what we're going to be talking about more than anything else today, is how we do that. And so we have all of these initiatives, and we're all saying we're doing collective impact. And by definition, collective impact is diverse organizations working on complex problems, right? So in each of these fields, we have complex problems. We have problems with education, we have problems in transportation and mental health. So all of those initiatives are very much needed. But what we believe in Human Needs Network and what we've learned over the years is that unless you address all of the needs of an individual, again, it comes down to one person. That one person has more than just one need. And so if we focus all of the attention on their transportation needs, but we've not taken care of mental health or housing or transportation, that person is still not able to stand up on his own, right? He or she is going to need support in all of those areas. And so the work that we're doing at Human Needs Network is big enough, broad enough for us to say that it can encompass much of that work. So how do we align all of those initiatives? And we align all of those initiatives by making a picture that's big enough, and it's actually a person, but it's a a picture that's big enough that all of those efforts connect, and we find reasons why we connect. So what we have in common: education, employment, health, housing, transportation, childcare. That one person needs all of that. That's what we have in common. That's collective impact. So if we're working on all of those issues at the same time, then we're providing for that person what he or she needs to stand on his own. So the goal that we each have, regardless of what sector we're in particular in social services, whether we're providing transportation services or we have a clinic, we're providing medical care, we're tutoring children after school, regardless of what it is that we're doing, the one thing that we have in common is that we're trying to improve, we're working to improve the well-being of others. It comes down to one person. That's what we have in common. That's what keeps us grounded. Christy asked me to share this with you. There is a survey in order to determine, you may be able to explain it better than I can, but it's a transportation survey. Can you tell them what it's for, Christy?
It's provided by the Texas State Independent Center, and they're gathering information from now until March 15th about the transportation needs.
Okay. And it's the Texas Department of Independent Living?
Right.
Okay. And the best part, or if you're interested, everyone who completes the survey is entered for a $500 certificate, right?
If you choose not to be anonymous, if you choose to use your name.
Okay, if you choose, so it's anonymous. The survey is anonymous unless you add your name to it. And if you add your name to it, you'd be entered for that $500.
What's the price again?
$500.
Just cash.
Cash. It's probably a debit card of some kind. Probably a debit card. Okay, so we're getting to the part where we actually get to interact instead of you just listening to me talk. There are other initiatives. There are other networks out there doing work. They may be large initiatives like the Big Meadows Foundation, or it might be something small, 3 or 4 agencies getting together working on stuff. So there are networks in our community that we are not aware of. I may not be aware of, the rest of us may not be aware of, but you're aware of. And so I'd like for you at each of your tables to begin talking about what other initiatives, other than the ones that I've mentioned, you are aware of in our community. What is the name of the initiative if it has a name, or what is their goal if it doesn't have a name? And then who's leading it? Who's involved? It's important for us to have all of that so we can invite them to the table. We don't want to miss them. We also don't want organizations working on efforts that others are working on at the same time and not be sitting at the same table. Because it's all of the work that we're tasked with doing and that we're looking at doing this year. It's difficult work. It's time-consuming work. It requires a lot of research, a lot of details, a lot of time. And there's no reason for 2 people on the other side, on each side of the city, to be doing the same work when they could be sitting together and doing it all at once. So that's what I'd like for you guys to work on at each of your tables, or perhaps maybe in small groups since we have so many. Maybe just put yourself together like in groups of 3. You can put yourself together in groups of 3 and then begin working on this, and I need someone to keep notes. So just break out into groups of 3 and we'll take it from there. Does that make sense? Does that work?
Look at the board. Give her a minute.
What are we supposed to break up into?